Hello everyone, and my name is Stella Glory, and welcome to Vision Australia's Employment and Leadership. Now, just a reminder that you can put your questions into the comment sections of the live feed at any time, and we will answer those questions. But first off, I'd like to introduce you to our panel this afternoon, and we'll start off right down the very end. And we have got Darren Fittler, and Darren sits on the board for Vision Australia, and his expertise in laws specific to charities and not-for-profit organisation and his generalist corporate and commercial law experience enables him to provide innovative, holistic, strategic and targeted legal advice and practical guidance to the not-for-profit, charitable and philanthropic sectors. Darren, did I get that right?
Yes. I told you probably only had to do the first line. But anyway.
Well, welcome to the panel today. And then sitting in the middle, we have Karen Knight, who's the General Manager in Queensland and Northern New South Wales Client Services. In addition, she leads the National Advocacy and Engagement Team and represents the Vision Australia on a national peak bodies and through media appearances on national and metropolitan channels. Would it be fair to say that the advocacy and engagement team do most of the work here at Vision Australia?
They certainly do their fair share.
Well, welcome this afternoon. And right next to me is Chris Edwards, who is the Manager of Government Relations and Advocacy at Vision Australia. Chris is an experienced human services senior manager with expertise in improving organisation performance in service delivery. Welcome this afternoon, Chris, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Stella. It's great being here.
So let's open it up for the first question. This is about employment and leadership. So I think the first question we should ask is, what does a leadership mean to you? Are you a born leader or can you learn to become a leader? Chris, I'll throw that over to you first.
Luckily, that's such a straightforward question, Stella. Leadership for me is about, it's about the ability to be able to influence people to achieve an objective. And that's through, the great leaders have ability to be able to turn complex problems and explain them simply. And they've also got the ability to continually adapt and actually look for opportunities and be able to make those changes and bring people with them. And I think finally the thing that I sort of think when I think about a leadership is about thinking about the great leaders think about the people around them and put them first before putting themselves first. And the second part to the question, are you born a leader or can you learn it? Look, I think that everybody recognises that you don't have to have authority to be a leader. And, like even on my son's football team, there's the traditional captain, but there's various people in the team that, because of their expertise, because of their skills of being able to communicate, people reach up and see them as leaders. But you do as a leader over time learn skills that improves your leadership skills. Whether that's being able to look at how you motivate people that have different ideas and different backgrounds, right through to dealing with conflict, and being able to have all those people skills is really important as a leader.
That's a fantastic answer. We might come back to that a bit later on as well. Karen, this question's for you. I'll ask this one. So when you were job hunting or in your career, what are some of the biases that you've experienced and how did you overcome them?
I think for me, being blind and a female, one of the biases, particularly early in my career, was that I wasn't taken too seriously. That because I'm fairly introverted, people often thought that I didn't actually have an opinion on anything. And I worked on this by working on my self-confidence, by taking time to reflect on how I could make myself heard and say something that people would listen to. So for me, I did try hard to be as good as the next person. And sometimes being blind, I thought I needed to be better than the next person. Whether that's right or wrong, it was certainly the way that I operated in the early part of my career. So for me, I think it's resilience is key. And there are many people and situations that you'll come up against in your career that won't go as well as you hope it will, but it's that ability to bounce back and to have things in your life that actually do nourish you and nurture you, that you can rely on when times get tough.
So when you say that you weren't taken seriously, putting you on the spot here, do you have an example that you could give?
Well, I trained as a psychologist early in my career, and what I was often told was, well, you're blind. As a counsellor, you don't really know how people are reacting to what you're saying. You can't see their non-verbals. How could you possibly know how someone's reacting? Well, for me, that was a ridiculous perspective, because you can tell in so many ways. You can hear people's voices, you can hear the pace that they're speaking at, you can hear the intonation, you can often hear body movement, that they might be putting their hands over their face or they might be crossing their arms, a whole lot of signs that tell you lots of things. So for people to have perspectives about the way that you see your world and then build their own picture of how successful and competent you are from that, to me, was something that I struggled with early on.
Thanks, Karen. And now this one over to you, Darren. What is one piece of advice that you'd give people who are blind or have low vision who might be navigating through their own career vocational journey?
Well, thank you for that. And I would have equally have liked to have answered the other questions, but this one's a good one too. I think just to quickly put into perspective, one of the other reasons I'm sitting in the chair here is because in the law firm I work in, I'm a partner of that firm, and I have people who work with and as part of my team. And so what I encourage in my team, and I encourage in everybody, regardless if you have a disability or if you're blind or vision impaired or not, is that something really useful is just having good life experience. It is for a number of reasons. One of the key reasons is it gives you a point of reference. If you want to start a conversation with someone, if you want to get to know someone, if you want to have sort of a way of building a relationship, having a broad breadth of life experience to help trigger that is really important. And you just don't know who you're going to meet and what you're going to learn, and whether or not that person you're speaking with might be a future employer or might be someone that can help you into a role. So if people are job hunting or even in a current job, really explore other things around you. I've got people in my law firm who say to me, oh, I can't make my Arabic class tonight because I've just got too much work to do. And I say, that Arabic class is so important. Like, go and do it. This can wait till tomorrow. Who knows who you'll meet there? Who knows what you'll learn? And guess what? Maybe in 6 months' time, we'll meet a client, and that client, speaks Arabic or is also learning Arabic like you. And you now have like a shared place that you can speak from and build a relationship and build your career. So I just really, really encourage people just to try things, do ballroom dancing, start karate, learn a language, whatever it might be, whatever opportunity comes along, build that life experience, and that will absolutely help in your employment career.
And you're also striking a beautiful work-life balance there too, Darren, promoting that.
Yes. If I could practice what I preached, that would be right. But yes, no, it does help balance those things out. And most of my extracurricular things now are with family and on the weekends. But I do piano lessons with my daughter. I go to Taekwondo with my entire family. and still sort of trying to get out and about and try new things. I've only started both those two things in the last 12 months, and yeah, always pushing myself to learn new things and to meet new people.
Now, we've got a couple of questions that have come through from viewers, and this one is from Tina. And who is a leader that you look up to, and how have they shaped you? Now, I'll throw that open to anyone, any three of you who might like to answer that one. A little bit of thinking time there.
While people are thinking, I wouldn't mind, if it's okay, just taking up maybe one of the points that Chris made.
Oh, please.
I think sometimes people think about leadership in terms of people, as opposed to in terms of skills. You know, oh, that person's a leader. Well, that person might be a leader today in the role that you see them, but in another environment, they might not be. And because you might be a leader in the workplace, but you might not be at home. You know, you might be a leader on the football field, but not in the workplace. You might be, and so it's about the qualities and characteristics and what you bring to a particular role at any time. And so, yes, while some people might have more natural traits around how they engage with people, have some more natural charisma, and have sort of a way about them that might lend themselves to being, more like leadership material. Anybody, in my view, can learn the skills of good leadership.
So it's more nuanced than that. Do you think we've locked ourselves into a particular ideal of what a leader is?
100%.
So I'll put you on the spot then, Darren. Who do you look up to as a leader?
Well, I take inspiration from, I guess, all number of people, and in a way, I have someone who works in my team. People who look at my team would say, well, that person reports to Darren. I'm supposed to be her leader, but she's really amazing at the way in which she mentors other people in our firm and other people under her. And I think that, she's, a great leader in that regard. And so I think just being able to identify traits in others and allowing those to inspire you, and it doesn't have to be, Gough Whitlam or some amazing person that's sort of in the press all the time, or a president of a country. It can be, it could be your mum and dad, it could be your children, it could be a teacher, it could be someone who works for you. So, the leader of our law firm, Danny Gilbert of Gilbert and Tobin, has some amazing traits that I think has helped with his success and the success of the firm. And so I look to him in certain ways that he behaves, but there's other things that he does that I wouldn't necessarily agree with. And so I don't necessarily adopt those. So it's, again, for me, it's not about a person per se. It's about a characteristic or two of that person that you really resonate with.
Now, we've got some more questions coming through, but Karen or Chris, would you like to expand on anything that Darren has said in relation to an inspirational leader?
I think for me, I'd certainly echo what Darren says, and that different times in your life, different things about leadership and people might appeal to you. So there might be, for me, there's been times in my life where there's been what I would probably call elder statespeople in the blind community have really influenced me really positively. Other times it has been particular, public figures that might have done something that have influenced me. So it is about looking for traits and that resonate with you, and then integrating them where possible and where you can into your own style, but at different times, different things appeal to you for different reasons.
Chris, did you want to touch on that?
Well, I don't think really I've got much more to add. I totally agree. I don't ever think of one leader as sort of my super influence, but it's about, I look at people, and no matter who they are, whether they're in leadership roles or not, as Darren and Karen says, and go, that's pretty cool. I wouldn't mind, thinking about how I can use that in, working in what I do.
Now, we've got a question come through from Jane. How do you engage in self-development of your leadership? Now, I'm presuming that question is about how you develop your own leadership.
Can I answer?
You certainly can, Darren.
I'm really passionate about this, again, because this is not something we're naturally born with, in my view. And one thing that I think potentially we as blind people maybe even have a benefit over others is around that resilience, in that often when you have a vision impairment or you're blind, you can't always do something the same way as other people do it. So we have to work out a different way, or fail a couple of times and try again. And I think what this does is it builds this sense of continuous improvement. Tomorrow we want to be better than we are today. And I think my observation would be that people with disability more broadly, but also, people with vision impairment and blind, because of life circumstances, will generally have a greater sense of what that means. How do I get better in order to improve? And when you take that approach to life and that mentality, you then you say, well, what is a leader? How do I become a better leader? I, in the last 6 months, have found myself thinking, being very honest here, that I'm pretty good at the big ideas, pretty good at having a vision, pardon the pun, but I'm probably not as good as I could be on execution. How do I actually get out of the whirlwind of business as usual work that takes up my entire day, week, month, and year, and actually focus on some really important goals and bring my team with me? How do I do that? So I've actively sought out TED Talks, writings from other leaders, textbooks and other books to help me get a better understanding of what I can do better. And I will be taking that knowledge, implementing it, seeing if it works, and hopefully it will. But if it doesn't, I guess I'll just have to try something else.
We've got another question come through. Sorry, Chris, were you going to add that one?
I think the only thing I'd add to that is that I think one of the things that I've learned is take on opportunities as they arise, because one of the great things to learn is to be sometimes thrown into the deep end and to be able to work out things and engage the people that you need to be able to learn what you need to do. And so I think that I really encourage anybody to if there's an opportunity that might expand your horizon, take it on.
And just an additional comment to add to that is sometimes I think as leaders, you feel that you need to know everything, whereas actually you don't need to know everything. You can't know everything, and you don't have all the answers. And it's okay to be vulnerable and say, I don't know. But this is the way we can find out together.
Yeah, sometimes being a good leader is admitting that you don't know something. Here's one from Kerry, and this is a great question. What skill have you developed at school or uni that you have been able to take on into your career? So is it one of those questions, because I remember sitting at school thinking, I'm learning this thing, but am I ever going to use it in my working life? Can anyone think back of a skill?
Yep, 100%.
Yep, Darren.
Others on the committee, others on the panel, feel free to jump in if I'm getting too enthusiastic here. I had a similar experience to Karen. I did a social work degree as my first degree before I did law, and I was almost told that I couldn't progress through my university degree at all because in my second year I had to do some specific work on counselling and non-verbal communication. Exactly the same experience there. But through my social work degree, and I think just through life more generally, empathy is the thing that I would encourage people to learn more about and to practice more. Empathy is the idea of really putting yourself into someone else's shoes, trying to really feel and think as what it might be like if you were in that place. And if you need to, the third part of that in an environment is to then feed that back to the person and check in with them. And there's what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking it might be like to be you in this position. Am I on the right track? And if you can really capture the concepts of empathy. You know, put yourself in the position of the person interviewing you for your job. Put yourself into the position of your boss. Put yourself into the position of the people working under and for you. Put yourself into the position of your parents, of your children, of your spouse, your friends. In this scenario, what might they be feeling? What might they be thinking? And it goes back to my first point, life experience. You know, it's much easier to put yourself into someone else's shoes and to feel and to think what it might be like to be them if you've had lots of experience of all sorts of things. Now, you'll never get it right because a person is their own selves and they'll be feeling these things themselves, but it is such a powerful tool, and I would encourage anyone to try and master empathy. It'll help you go a long way.
I would agree with that. And also being a good listener, being able to just sit there, listen, because you'll learn so much more when you're listening than when you're talking.
And just actually listening, not hearing, like my children, actually listening. Hopefully they're not watching. They're probably not anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I learned is that at school and university is not to use my vision impairment as an excuse not to do stuff. Is that, you know, when I was at school and at uni, you know, there was stuff that you could probably try and get out of, but actually go, all right, how do I problem solve myself to go to work out how I can do it rather than how I can get out of it? And I think that, you know, and that's followed through, you know, my schooling and studies, but also, you know, in looking at, you know, what I do in the workplace and at home and in the sports arenas.
And I think too, for me, it's been organisational skills. That developing good organisational skills early have really stood me in good stead for later on when you have so many competing priorities in different aspects of your life, that having great organisational skills really does help you feel like you have some sort of control over things.
You might have answered this next question, Karen, because I'm going to throw this one over to you. We've got one from Ruani. How did you make the transition from an operational role to leading a team? And I imagine you'd have to be quite organised.
I think absolutely you do. And sometimes you make that transition before you've even realised you've made it, that you find yourself in a position where you can't hope to do all the operational things that maybe you once did. And you have to take a step back and say, now there are other people who are doing these things. This is my part of the puzzle that I need to support others to achieve whatever the outcome is. And that took me some time. It didn't happen overnight. And you also need to have trust in the people that you work with, and be really confident that they can deliver you what you need. And if you've got good communication with them, that happens because they come to you and together you problem solve when things may not be as on track as you wish. But it is about having a team around you with good skills, people you can trust, but people that you can also communicate with, and that it is truly two-way communication, that they feel that they can talk to you. It's not just, talking to them.
Now, Chris, here's one for you. This is a great question. This is from Begum. It's a very practical question. How did you train yourself to remember a lot of information about everything, about anything and everything? I think that might go back to what Darren was saying about life experience.
Well, I think it's funny because when I was younger and the assistive technology wasn't as good, there was one of the only ways you could operate is by continuing to remember everything. Now the way I deal with large amounts of information, which I have to do every day in my role, is get really good assistive technology skills. And so being able to effectively use the available technology that can support you to be able to look at and review information, but also be able to manipulate and stuff. And so, things, even simple things like using Excel that, some people say that's really difficult for a blind person. Being able to effectively do that using assistive technology really helps in processing the amount of large information I do every day.
That's fantastic. Karen or Darren, would you like to, can you add anything on to that?
A similar experience for me. When I was growing up, I lost my sight gradually in my, from the age of birth really, but lost most of my sight when I was around 13. And that was when technology was really starting to come in, and I wasn't really taught Braille. Well, I was, but I wasn't kind of whipped into shape about Braille. And so left to choosing between Braille or playing on this new fancy computer that talked to me, then I was always on the computer, right? So my Braille skills were never good enough for me to be able to read while I was speaking or to take information in through that medium. And really by necessity, I guess I built this sense of having to memorize things. And what I would say in terms of a memory and using your own memory to help support you in what you do through your life, there's a couple of elements to it. And I think the first one is to actually concentrate at the time, properly listen and take in the information. Now, often people will say, I forgot where I put my glasses, or I forgot where I put my car keys, or I forgot where I put my cane. Well, actually, the truth of the matter is you never remembered in the first place, because you weren't paying any attention at all to what you were doing. So, really, really pay attention to what you're doing. And the second thing I'd say is trust in the amazingness of your brain. Don't sit there the entire time going, blah, 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 must memorize, lock it away. Just trust that if you are concentrating well, it'll be there when you need it. And then the third thing is practice. Do this all the time. Mm-hmm. And with those three things, and I haven't read any books about this, I don't know, this is just my view and my experience. I'm not a scientist, but that I would say that in terms of training a memory that's useful just in practical life, like I can't quote scriptures or, slabs of text, but I can keep concepts in my mind and speak about things openly and without notes, and manage my way in a law firm, negotiating contracts and things without having any documents in front of me, because I've developed the memory that I have.
And I think a well-developed memory is so important. I was blind since birth, and early through school I did become a good Braille user, so that was a benefit I had. But at that time, once I went to university, everything was still on cassette. And all the textbooks were umpteen cassettes. And so, then technology came and certainly helped. But for me, memory has always been really important. And I don't know if he ever intended it, but when I was a child, I had a step-grandfather who used to practice all these memory games with me. Right. And it was, in retrospect, I really thank him for that, but didn't realise it at the time. And
sorry, Karen, I was going to say we are running close to time, but I'll let you finish your story.
No, I was just going to say that, it is about how you attach information to concepts that you already know, how you encode information will help you decode it, and using some of the tricks of memory, 7 plus or minus 2 to remember things, all those tricks really help.
So we're coming to the close of our employment and leadership Facebook Live session here at Vision Australia. We're very sorry if we didn't get to your questions, but our social media team will get to those answers for you. And also this recording will be available on our website shortly. And I'd like to thank Darren Fittler. Thank you very much, who sits on the board here at Vision Australia. Also to Karen Knight, our General Manager in Queensland and Northern New South Wales Client Services, and also Chris Edwards, who's the Manager of Government Relations and Advocacy here at Vision Australia, all leaders in their own right. And I'm Stella Glory, and thank you so much for your time today.
Vision Australia.
Blindness,
low vision,
opportunity.
Vision Australia logo. 3 navy blue ovals linked together diagonally within a bright yellow rectangle.